Lano Insano. How are you, brother?
How you going, man? Thanks for having me on.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we could make it happen. So we connected originally through Instagram, which is one of the greatest places to stalk and meet
Yeah.
people. I was like, who's this handsome man with the mullet? I had heard rumors of an amazing feat you were about to attempt and have since absolutely smashed. And we went for a run one day, and obviously got to know you, a high energy individual. I was training for the world champs. You were training for 36 Ironmen in 36 days. Sorry, half
Halves,
Ironman,
come on, yeah.
36
not fools yet.
days. Half still phenomenal. Can you dive into, firstly, share with people what the hell a half Ironman is, and more about what made you want to do it originally?
Yeah. So a half Ironman is a 1.9K swim, a 90K bike ride, and then a 21.1K run every single day for 36 days. So yeah, pretty much the first motivator that actually got me into the triathlon space was the Iron Cowboy. And he done 50 states of America in 50 days, 50 full Ironmans. And yeah, so for me, it was a short time ago when I actually got into this sort of space. So I've only been doing triathlon now for about a year and a half, I guess. So relatively short time of space.
What's 18 months, and then you've probably done more in a month than most have done their whole life.
Yeah. So I was like, well, what's the first goal? Because I look at someone like the Iron Cowboy as that was the thing that got me into it, and I was like, I'd love to chase that record of the full Ironmans. So yeah, I was like, well, yeah, you can't jump straight to that. Only doing it for a year and a half. So I jumped into the half Ironman record, which is now 36. So yeah, I just got after that, and yeah, so it was a pretty good little feat to get
So
after, and yeah, that's just how it all started. And once I got that idea in my head, yeah, just trained really hard to get my body and my headspace in a space that I could actually achieve that.
you said obviously you just been about 18 months in the, I guess, dual athlete sport or triathlete sport realm. Had you done any challenges like that in the past, or any crazy shit like that before, or was it just the first time?
Nah. So this is pretty much the first thing. I guess if you look at it, I've done 75 hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've done before that. But yeah, other than that, I just used to be a pretty normal Aussie dude. I used to play rugby league. That was pretty much my whole life growing up. Like 7 days a week, I'd either be coaching or playing. And then yeah, also just I used to be pretty much a general dude, so I'd get on the piss every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day it was. I'd just be on the piss and playing footy. And yeah, when I made this whole change, it just everything completely changed about my life. It's very funny now looking back at the lifestyle I used to live. I feel like I've already lived two different lives, and only 25. Like, so it's crazy how big of a change you can have in under 2 years.
What was the catalyst for the change? So most people, I was a very similar age. I was about 24 when I had my shift, and I think yourself and myself are probably anomalies for that age. What was it for you that made you shift?
For me, it was just a sort of, I guess, I was always driven by the building. So growing up, I was a carpenter, got my builder's license, and I'd always was aiming for those next goals. So when you're sort of growing up, you can go, all right, first year apprentice, second year apprentice, third year apprentice, go and get your builder's license. So I always had those next goals to chase after me. And sort of being in a small town, that was just a normal thing to do. So you go get your builder's license, you play footy, you drink piss. And yeah, that was pretty much just the norm for me that I sort of saw as a normal life. And then, yeah, my sister brought home, well, she gave me the Andy Frisella podcast to listen to one day. And he was talking about 75 hard. And I was like, that is so stupid. I was like, it's not even healthy to do 2 workouts a day. And I was trying to make up all these excuses of why it wouldn't be good to do. And then, yeah, slowly but surely, it just started chipping away at me day by day. And I think I probably listened to his podcast for like 2 months before I even done it. And I was like, oh, I'll just give it a try. I was like, there's no harm in trying. I was like, I probably won't ever do the 75 days because like I think the year before I tried to do dry July and I failed twice in the 1 month to not drink for a month. So I was like, I'm not going to go 75 days not drinking. I was like, I'll start and then see how far I get and yeah, go from there. And pretty much once I got into it, I really set myself the challenge of doing the 75 days, not drinking, but actually also going out and having fun. And so, yeah, every time that someone would invite me to go out, I made sure that I was still going out to the pubs or going out to the parties and everything like that. And I found that I was actually having just as much fun, but I'd also remember the night out as well. So, yeah, that really just drove it home to me that I don't have to drink to be having fun. And yeah, it led to a whole new healthy lifestyle that I could actually wake up on a Sunday morning and go for a run or go for a swim or a bike ride. And yeah, since then, it's just been a complete change.
It's pretty cool how you just decided to do something you maybe didn't have full confidence in yourself to get it done. But from that initial, let's just give the 75 hard a crack, you then also saw some other, I guess, areas in your life that you wanted to improve upon. One thing that I struggled with that I related to what you just said was when I, wanted to cut back drinking and my partying. I wish I had the balls to continue going out and go out sober, but I just couldn't do it, dude. I had the rubber arm.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I heard you talk about it on another podcast, and I was like, this dude's awesome. Like he identifies, like you see these areas that you would love to improve upon, but you don't alter your life to do it. It's just like you build it into your life, which for me, that's how you make sustainable change.
Yeah, and now like I even look at my lifestyle. I don't go out anymore, but it was for me to make that change, and I actually gained a lot of confidence from that. To actually go out to a pub and not drink for me, that was probably one of the biggest things that gave me a lot of confidence to. Because if you look at it, when you're in a pub or you're in a bar, you're around a lot of people, so you feel like all eyes are on you when you're sober. You feel like people know that you're not drinking.
Literally,
You,
dude.
you walk around, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
they know I'm not drinking. Everyone knows that I'm not drinking. So for me to gain that confidence, I then was able to take that into social settings of, say, a run club or anything like that, and actually to be able to just go around and talk to people. Whereas before that, I used to rely on alcohol to actually, if there was a crowd of anything more than 3, 4, 5 people, I felt like I had to be drinking to talk to everyone.
Yeah, man, I can relate to that so much. Like my social anxiety, wouldn't even call it anxiety, but I was just an awkward dude. I still am to a degree, but it's that exact thing. I needed to hold something in my hand, and originally it was like I used to smoke back in the day, so I'd always have a durry in my hand.
Yeah.
And then once I managed to kick that, it's like, all right, I've got to have a beer, and it's like I didn't even
Yeah.
enjoy it half the time, but it's just it was like my blanket, man. Like when you had the teddy growing up, you just hold on to that and go, I'm safe.
Well,
And then you'd act like a dickhead afterwards.
100%. Well, one of my things was when I actually did stop drinking for a bit, I used to just get a soda water and lime. So I was like, oh, if people think that
Mm.
I've got a vodka lime soda, I was like, they won't think that I'm not drinking. So I'd walk around just carrying a glass of soda water and lime in there, hoping that people thought I was drinking vodka sodas.
Mate, smart. It's like it's trying to make things more, frictionless, I guess. If you're trying to create change, obviously, you've got to deal with it yourself mentally, but then also the environment. So it could be your friends or your colleagues. And even now, I've got like non-alcoholic beers in the fridge. And I said to my mate yesterday, I was on the phone, and I was like, man, I've never had beers in my fridge my whole life,
Yep.
ever. But we're obviously in a new town, we're socializing a lot and meeting a lot of people. And I was just hitting the piss, not heavy, but drinking most nights. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yep.
So to get on the front foot, because we've got people coming over, so I'm just going to keep the beers in the fridge, non-alcoholic ones, because then I don't have to drink what other people are bringing over. It's just like I'm prepared for the socializing, but rather than
Well,
doing what I don't necessarily want to do, I'm good to
yeah,
go.
well, that's it. You're setting yourself up for success. Like if you don't have those there, and then someone comes over and they bring a carton of beer around, then you're going to drink their beer. So if you've got your beers of non-alcoholic beers in the fridge, you're going to drink it.
Exactly. And so diving back into your story, sorry to bloody hijack it a bit
No,
there.
I love it, mate. I
So
love talking about that sort of stuff. I think it's something that needs to be shared more because so many people get such anxiety around that, I reckon.
definitely. And look, to pull that apart then while we're here, for me, and I'm sure it might have been the same for you, Lane, when you recognize that you needed that as a safety blanket or to make you feel comfortable, it's then about asking yourself, why do you need it? For me, I felt, and as I said before, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm socially awkward. I don't know the right things to say. Maybe I don't feel like I have value to add. So it's like, okay, well, why is that? And then it comes back, you're peeling these layers back, and it's like, oh, I don't believe in myself, or I don't think I'm worthy. Okay, well, that's the issue, not the
No,
alcohol.
100%.
The
Yeah.
alcohol is a symptom.
Yep. Big time.
What was it like? obviously going through that transition, probably did you lose a lot of friends along the way?
Yeah. It's actually, and it's, I don't blame it on them, but it's also probably me not being the way that I used to be as well. Like when I used to drink, I would say I was pretty wild. Like I'd go out there, I was pretty carefree, and I wouldn't really give a shit about everything. But I think it's one thing you notice as well when you actually stop drinking, maybe about the way that people are perceiving themselves when they're drunk. Like you look at, I've found I had a lot of mates that I'd been out with since I was 17, 16, and I'd never thought they were a dickhead when they were drinking. And then as soon as I stopped drinking for like a month or two, I'm like, holy shit! I was like, I can't believe that you hang around these people, and it's all you think you're just having a good time and nothing's too serious. But you look at some of the stuff that they're doing, and you're like, that's taken too far. So yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
have lost like, and like I said, it's a part and part. Like I think it's also my doing as well. But yeah, I definitely had a lot of mates that haven't reached out to me, and I haven't reached out to them because it's just we've gone in separate paths. Like they look at my lifestyle and think that's not a lifestyle that I want to live, and I also now look at their lifestyle and think that that's a lifestyle that I don't want to live. So I guess it's one of those things. But now I've also put myself in a situation where I've made since like lived up in Brisbane for 7 months now, and I'd have to have well the last day of my challenge I had 100 people rock up. So in a space of 7 months, I've went and met at least 100 people, if not more, that I actually call really good
Yeah.
friends and great people to be around. So yeah, when you can do something like that, and it's all just about changing your environment, really.
That's one thing that people struggle with is changing their environment. It's, we don't like being alone. We don't like feeling like we're not a part of something that, it's like the crab in the bucket mentality when the crab's trying to get out, all of the other ones are pulling it back in.
100%.
So for you, the key to your success there was obviously, well, how did you get that new network then? Can
Well,
I
yeah,
can
yeah.
start there? Like how did,
So
yeah.
yeah, I found that through running. So, um, and this is just like another thing, and it's just crazy how quick it can go from one length to the next. So, pretty much last year, I decided to do a 100K run at Mount Kosciuszko, which was just
Like,
like, yeah, that was out of nowhere. So I went from running, the longest run I'd done before that was 23K. And then I decided to do a 100K run through Mount Kosciuszko. And then when I done Mount Kosciuszko, I met a group of people that owned a run club up in Gold Coast and Brisbane. And whilst I was still living in Sydney down there, so I met them at about halfway through December during the run. So we talked to them for about an hour or two over the run, and then they were like, "Oh, you should come up when next time you're up in Brisbane or Gold Coast. Like, you should come and do the run club." And then literally 2 weeks later, over Christmas, New Year's, I was one of my best mates. He'd went away, and all my friends were gone. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to drive up to Brisbane. So I packed my swag in the back of my ute, drove up to Brisbane, and there's a run club called Mega Run. And yeah, within the space, so I done that on New Year's Eve, and then I done the Mega Run in Gold Coast on the New Year's Day. Met my current girlfriend, met all my best mates that I've got up here at the moment within the space of like something that I just look at it and I go, I never would have done that a year ago. I never would have just driven up in my ute. I was camping along like all the beaches. Like, I think at one stage I was at Mermaid Beach and I was literally camping on the beach, and both the houses next to me were both worth 15 million. And I was just got my swag rolled out on the
wow.
yeah. So, like I was just up here, just living, like just doing stuff that I just found a bit uncomfortable, but I look at it now and I'm like, that's probably like the biggest change that I could have had in my lifestyle. So from moving, and then I decided to move up here after I met all those people. So I lived up here. Then there was a stage where I was actually running those run clubs. So I got to meet so many more new people. And yeah, no, it's just been a real, from one sort of thing that you go out and you think that's going to be impossible to do, which was for me was the 100K run to do, has just completely changed my life. If I think that's probably one of the biggest days that has completely changed the trajectory of my life.
So just say yes to shit that you think you might
A
enjoy.
100%, yeah, and that's like even now in a week and a half's time, I'm doing a 60K run for Movember through Brisbane. I haven't
Yep.
really done much running since the challenge, and I'm like, I think 60K is probably going to suck a lot for me at the moment. But I was like, you know what, just say yes to it, and you never know. There's probably going to be people that you're going to meet during that have also just said yes to doing it, and then you just make those friendships. And I think doing stuff like that really puts you out of your comfort zone, and you think, oh, I'm probably going to be the only one doing that, but you're not. A lot of those people that are in those environments are all putting themselves out of their comfort zone, so you get that commonality through there.
Yeah, there's something fun about doing those hard things.
Oh man, it's
Like
really addictive. I find it.
definitely. And for some people it literally might be a 5K for them. And obviously every time you break this ceiling of what you think is possible for yourself, it's like for you now 60K, you're like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
Like it'll suck, but you're fairly confident in your ability. And that's the beautiful thing about pursuing the hard shit.
100%. And that's like one of my things now. Like I've got a little podcast for myself, and it's called "What's Your Crazy," and it's all about just helping people find what is their crazy goals. Like I look at myself, and I might go out over the top, but then, like you said, for someone that's doing a 5K run, or for some people, it's even just getting off the couch and going for a 10-minute walk. So I just think that
Mm.
everyone should invest in their own crazy. Like some people, it's for music, it's whatever, whatever, and it's like go out and do that thing that you enjoy, because even though you think people might look at you, people really don't care. Like like I said, when I finished my challenge, 2 days after I'd finished my challenge, I was like, oh, there was such all this hype around it. 2 days later, I was just a normal human. So I look at that. If you go and do
Yeah.
whatever you want to do, people are still going to look at you the exact same way.
That's the thing, hey. Like you can never, and whether people judge you or not, who gives a shit? I went on a ghost tour last night. Like my missus, I don't know if your missus loves like true crime or if you love it, true crime and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, last night was a date night and we tried to get into a jazz bar. It was booked out. We tried to get into comedy. It was booked out. And Amy's like, "There's this ghost tour on at 9 o'clock." I was like, "Let's do
Yeah.
it." Anyway, it was like good fun, man. Anyway, once we get into like just near Broadway, like the busy part of the town, there's people everywhere, like socializing. And all of us, like our tour guide, just was so invested in ghosts and
Yeah.
whatnot. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I was worried about what these people were thinking about me. They're like, "Is this guy a loser because he's doing a ghost tour?" And that, I
Exactly.
had to laugh to myself when that happened because I was like, it doesn't stop. Like anyone who thinks they're ever going to not give a shit about what people think are kidding themselves. But it's just the difference between whether you're going to allow that to hold you back or not
And that's the thing.
is the
Like you could
difference.
ask all those people, whoever you're walking past, 99.999% of them probably never even noticed you. Like they're just doing their own thing. Yeah.
What? Come on, mate. No.
You're a good looking sort, mate.
Yeah. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But that, so what from your podcast, Sam, with What's Your Crazy, what has been, I guess, two or three things that you've enjoyed learning about that?
Well, yeah, like I've really enjoyed learning about how different people actually perceive their crazy. Um, because yeah, for me, like I've always been a goal driven person, and I've enjoyed about sort of taking those stepping stones of going to the next thing. And but for me to realize that that's not everyone's mentality. A lot of people can get stuck in the everyday rut. So a lot of them, it's just like a crazy goal for them is just to sort of live the life that they actually want to live. And for me, I'm like, oh, that just comes normal to me. Like I'm happy to chase after dreams that I want to go after. But for someone else, that seems really crazy. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that it's all about. I've learned to put myself in other people's shoes a lot more, I think.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And for yourself, then you obviously mentioned living I guess, a life by design. You're happy to chase that.
Yeah.
Where has, I guess, the motivation and the courage come to do that? Because I would say a lot of people listening feel that's courageous because the safe option, the one that we get educated to live, is so different to what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's sort of funny. Like I think I've probably been the one to break the mold of that, I guess, in my family. Like my pop, he's 75 or 76, and he's still working a 70-hour week. Like the day that he stops working, he'll drop dead. Like he's just
Yeah.
driven to work, and he loves it. And then my parents, they've sort of just started to like slowly get away from that work scene as well and actually chase their dreams. So for me,
That's awesome.
yeah, and that's like I love it now because I think if I probably wasn't the one to start talking about all this stuff about me moving to Brisbane to go and live a lifestyle of being active and actually going and doing the stuff that I want, I think that they probably would have just stayed working for the rest of their lives as well. Whereas now they've just went and bought a caravan to drive around Australia and to have a gap year and whatnot. And I really think that for me, it was, I sort of worked really hard from the ages of probably 15 was when I started on this job site. So from the ages like 15 to 22, like I was working 6, 7 days a week, 10, 12-hour days in the sun, whatever, in the cold, whatever it was. And I was so used to that. And then I sort of realized that I wasn't overly happy and I didn't feel like I was fulfilled, and I felt like I was just doing it to get by day. And then it come to a stage where I was starting to invest in property, and I really wanted to go down the route of actually being a property investor, like a buyer's agent, so buying investment properties for people. And this is where I was like, oh, that would be so good. And I was actually like 99% signed up for the army at this stage. And then my old boss, he actually offered me a job to come in as a buyer's agent. And I was like, oh, I was weighing up the two, but I was like, I really want to do this buyer's agent job. So I went into this job and I was like, I was so passionate about it. And I was like, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And within the space of like 4 or 5 months, I was like, oh, this wasn't what it was painted out to be. Like, I was really actually shocked. And I was working with a lot of successful people as well. Some people that like had, I guess, materialistic things like their Ferraris and everything like that. So I was buying their investment properties. But for me, was a big realization to see that money doesn't buy happiness. Like a lot of these people had a lot of money and they were always trying to screw people over for the next $1,000, $2,000, whatever it was. And they weren't happy in themselves. Like you could tell by every time I'd ring them on the phone, it was like there was this big drama of whatever it was. They'd always have this thing in their life that they weren't happy about. And then for me, that was the biggest realization to think, holy shit, like why are all these people working for money and they're never achieving happiness in their life? And there's been a study done on this, and it's like they ask people how much money would make you happier. And 99% of the answers is 3 times much more money. So it's like, I could be earning 50 grand a year. And they ask me, it's like, oh, if I had 150 grand a year, I'd be happy. And then you go and ask that person making 150 grand a year, they say 450,000. So everyone's thinking that money's going to make them happy when it doesn't. You've got to find value in yourself to make yourself happy.
Spot on. I think the number even originally when they did that study as well was like 75 grand a year.
Yeah.
This is US obviously, but throw a bit of inflation on there, you're probably looking at 100 now.
Yep.
And after that, happiness doesn't increase much more. It's just like the way I look at it, even for myself, is once I hit what I wanted to hit financially, the next thing was how do I continue to earn this, but get time back to, do the challenges I want to do or spend more time with my wife or travel and do those things, because that then becomes a game as opposed to working harder and trying to grow your income. It's just like, how do I get time back?
Yeah, 100%. And time's the most valuable asset. Like that's the one thing that you're never going to have more of. You can always try and make more money
100%.
or whatever it is, but when your time's up, and you never know when that's going to be. So that's the I read a good book on that, which was called Die with Zero. Sorry, not Vero.
It's great.
Die with Zero is a great Die with Zero is a great book.
The Mo's getting caught in your
look
lips.
how long it is, mate. I might need a little trim soon.
It's filthy. I love it, man.
Yeah, so Die with Zero, and that's a great book, and it talks about why make all this money through your lifetime to then chuck it all away or give it to your kids or whatever when they can make their money. And it's like, you could eventually die and your kids get your inheritance, but you don't get to see what your kids do with the money. So while you got the money, why not give it to the kids whilst you're alive to actually help them maybe invest or whatever it is, rather than passing away, then they've got this large sum of money and then they just go and blow it all. Whereas you could have slowly given them 10 grand a year to help them out doing whatever and actually had a bigger positive impact on their life.
Yeah, I hope my parents listen to that bit of advice.
Yeah.
Give me some money.
Took you a bit of money, mate.
Yeah. But even, dude, like think about the stories you're going to have when you're 60, 70, 80 plus of like the crazy stuff that you've done, the risks that you've taken. You're not going to be sitting around talking about the fact that you made X amount of money. Like your grandkids or your kids aren't going to give a shit about that.
Yeah.
They want to hear the cool stories, man.
Yeah. And that's actually, I went for a run this morning, and for some reason this thing popped in my head. It was like, your future self will wish you'd done more when you were younger. And like, it's probably, I don't know, someone else has probably said it, but for some reason it just like popped into my head. And I was like, it's so true. Like, you look at where you're going to be in 10 years' time or whatever. And like, I'm only 25 now. It's like, this is meant to be your glory day. So you should be doing so much more with your time. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you should just go and do whatever. You speak to people when they're 50 and they're 60 and they're like, oh, man, to do, like, if I could go back to the age of 25, the stuff that I do. So, yeah, it's 100% about just trying to do as much as you can in this little time, I guess.
Yeah, literally, a bloke said to me probably 8 months ago now when we were talking about my business, and he's like, you could really scale that to $1 million a year business. I'm like, yeah, I know I could. And he's like, well, why don't you? I'm like, well, because that would mean I'd have to spend more time on it, more coaching, more X, Y, and Z. And it means then I can't do the fitness stuff that I love doing because I can always earn more money.
Yep.
But there comes a time and a place like, after sort of 40, you start losing a lot of your speed. So you can't do a lot of that, fast work. That's when I'll start getting into triathletes and Ironmans and all that, my
Yes.
endurance
Thanks,
events.
mate.
It's like, well, I've still got this.
Why am I saying that bit of a stat?
Nah, you peaked early,
Yeah.
bro. But I've thought about a lot of that because it's like once again, when you think about what you want from your life and the experiences and the stories that you want to be able to tell, for me, I've been like, okay, well, there's a timeline. I regret retiring from rugby when I did because as much as I could go back now, I haven't played for 10 years. My body wouldn't like it, but I don't want to make that same mistake again when I'm 40 and not being able to do 400 meters or all these other things that I'm doing at the moment. I've got a timeline for that. So business will continue to tick along, but as long as I have the freedom to do what I want and be a good man and have great friends and have a roof over my head, life's pretty good.
100%, man. And that's the thing. Like, you strip life back to its simplest form, and it's like, how do you be happy? You like surround yourself with good people. You keep active. Like, it's not much to make someone happy, but everyone thinks there's this secret ingredient that once you get this much money and you get this car or you get this, I don't know, laptop or whatever it is, like, that you're going to be happy. But it's really not. Like, being happy is a very simple thing if you strip it down to the smallest things, the smallest matters, having great people around you. Yeah, it really is. It can be such a simple task.
Literally, yeah. The hard part's not getting distracted. So with the Ironman, what was the drive? Obviously, you saw Iron Cowboy, and I watched his doco as well, and I was like, that dude's insane. I saw another guy. I think it was you who actually told me the guy who was on ended up getting 103 days or something.
You end up getting 105. So yeah, so at the moment, when I do go for that record eventually, I'm looking at 106 at the moment. So yeah, I'm looking at that going, shit, how like it just gets bigger and bigger. And like, to be fair, I think that's one of I guess my motivation for it is, in all seriousness, I think it's probably one of the toughest challenges that's ever been done. Some people say like I really don't think anything else has been done that is harder than backing up Ironman after Ironman for 105 days. I really don't think. You look at some of these people that do these big runs and everything like that. In my experience, I just don't think that could be topped at the moment. There's some people running around the world and people running across Africa and that, but say they're averaging between 60 to 60K a day. These people are going and doing like a 3.8K swim, 180K bike ride, followed by a 42K run. So for 100 days plus in a row. So for me, that I've just been drawn to that. I don't know. I've had this mentality of always growing up, even when I was young playing footy. Like, I was always one of the smallest people on the field, but I've always felt like I've had to prove myself and just that underdog mentality. So when I saw and I did think that would be the hardest thing possible to ever do, I just got driven to it. I was like, if I can get that completed in my lifetime and say that I've done the physically hardest task ever, I was like, that's a pretty sick title to have to your name.
100%. What did the training look like in the lead up to it, and even the recovery? Because when you were talking about then, the runs and there's a lot of phenomenal people doing a lot of phenomenal shit at the moment, like huge stuff. But then when I think about what you just said, then an average Ironman might take what, 10, 12 hours?
Yeah, like
roughly.
If you can do a really good, I'd say the average time would be around 12 to 13 hours, I reckon, for the average human. So like a really good time is under 10, but yeah, you're doing 12, 13 hours at an average.
And then you got to try and let your body recover enough to the point where it can actually sleep. That was one of the things I realized from my marathons.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, I'll be able to sleep heaps and whatnot, but your body's so
Yep.
fucked, it can't sleep. Like it doesn't, it's like tingling and
It's
all
nuts.
kinds
It's,
of
it's the
stuff.
weirdest shit. Like, you would think that your body would be so exhausted, like you'd just fall asleep like that. And it gets to a stage where you're like literally laying there. And that was one of the funniest things for me. I was sweating in bed and I'd have the aircon on me. I'd have no sheets on and I'd just be laying there sweating. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, and it's one of those things like, and I found it sort of hit me harder after it. Once your body is like allowed to just have all this fatigue in you, you just feel like like you're laying there and like my legs are just throbbing. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's definitely the challenge of it is recovery. And I found like one of the best things for me was like the ice baths. Like every day that I finished, I just go and hop in an ice bath for like 20 minutes just to try and cool everything down, because I found that there was a couple of days where I didn't get in the ice bath, and that night I was so hot. So if I couldn't sleep, I was like, this is my biggest thing. So trying to get into an ice bath and just have my core temperature down, like, because especially around Brizzy, it's very hot, humid, and there was like some mornings. I think there was a morning after I didn't have an ice bath, and before I'd even got on the bike, I was literally just like covered in sweat, and I hadn't even started on the bike yet. And like that's just how hot my body temperature, like my core temperature, was just cooking. So yeah, there's little bits and pieces like that where it was you got to really prioritize recovery and try and work out what's going to be best for recovery.
What were some other challenges you faced over the 36 days?
I guess like nutrition is a big thing. Yeah, like you constantly. I actually didn't. I think I lost like half a kilo over the whole challenge. So when you're burning around 6,500
Wow.
calories a day, um, that means I've done a pretty good job at eating about 6,500 calories a day, whilst also bike riding, swimming, running. So yeah, it's definitely that was one of the biggest challenges of like you just have to force yourself to eat. Like I'd sit down for lunch and it's
Mm.
34 degrees and you don't really want to eat, which is different to American temperature. I don't know what that would be over there in America, but yeah, it's 34
Yeah, it's
degrees.
like 70 or 90 or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
So like you literally sit down and I've got my pasta and I'm like, I don't want to eat, but it's like, you know, you've got to eat or else you're just going to feel like shit. Like the first day I went out with having, I think all I had was like a chicken wrap for lunch between the bike and the run. And I went out on the run with no food as well. So by the time that I got back on the first run, after the first day, I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is going to go south, like real south, real quick. Like, but then, yeah, by day 4, day 5, it was like, okay, this is how much food we've got to eat in this like amount of time. And it's like, you've got no choice. So I just eat as much as I could. Like literally, it wasn't even a healthy diet because you're just trying to get as many calories in as you can. So I was waking up, I was eating 2 peanut butter and honey sandwiches before I'd swim. I'd get out, I'd have like a big thing of protein oats, and then like I'd be eating brownie for breakfast and drinking like just calorie water. So I was just drinking carb waters on the bike. So between my 3 bottles, I was getting 900 calories on a bike just through drinking. Um,
Wow, that's
yeah,
unreal.
yeah. And then I'd have like 20 snakes on the bike ride, um, packets of chips, just LCM bars, just like everything that was just full of sugar and full of calories, I was eating. And then like the biggest thing was then when you go out and try and run, you feel like you're going to throw up the whole run. So I'd get to like 13K and I'd be like trying to stop myself from throwing up, because if you throw up, then you lose all those calories that you've just eaten for the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was certainly one of the biggest challenges. And I guess like one of the biggest challenges also was I just getting up every single day. I'd found that I'd get out of bed and I'd go and sit. I've got a step near my bed and I'd just like sit on the step. And that was like the first step of the day. So I'd get there and I'd be there for like 5 minutes, just like thinking, why am I going out to do this? And I guess for me, it's one of those things like tying it back to that having cystic fibrosis as the main charity for this fundraiser. I was like, people living with cystic fibrosis don't get a say in how they get to live their life. So I'd sit there, I'd look at myself in the mirror and go, you're doing this for a reason more than yourself, and get out there and go and do it for them. And then, yeah, it's one of those things as well. Once you put it out there and you tell everyone that you're going to do 36 half Ironmans, you want to fucking do that. So, yeah, I'm a man of my word. And I was like, let's fucking get it done, I guess.
Was there one standout moment where considered pulling the pin, or that never crossed your
I
mind?
wouldn't say pulling the pin was ever going to happen, but there was a couple of days where I think the worst days are when it's super windy. So I think it was
Hmm.
day 11, and the wind was so windy. Like I was normally on my bike when I push 200 watts on the bike, I go about 30k an hour, and this one day I was pushing 200 watts on the bike and I was going 23k an hour. So I was like doing the same amount of effort to go 7k an hour slower, and I was just there going like I was literally screaming at the wind. Then my bike chain fell off, so I had to fix up my bike, and it was just like everything just felt like it was against me that day. But yeah, in all, there wasn't too many days where I thought I was going to quit, but there was a lot of days where it's just a tough grind, and some days you just don't want to talk to anyone. Some other days you're wishing you had people around to talk to, and I found that for me, my focus was just all over the shop. I was trying to maybe
Mm.
listen to music sometimes, listen to a podcast or whatever. But then other days I was just like, I just want to be by myself and not have people around me talking. So like I'd go on a 3.5 hour bike ride I was taking sometimes, and I wouldn't listen to anything. Or I'd find someone along the track and try and talk to them or whatever it was. And yeah, it was really, I think I just got stuck so much in my own headspace that I couldn't even control what I was thinking at most of the time. Yeah.
Were you doing, and like in the lead up to and during, did you do anything to sort of prep your mindset?
um, I wouldn't say like I guess with my training load, like I was training 28 hours a week, so um, I guess that in itself comes with a lot of prep to train your mind. Like one of my
Yep.
worst training sessions was we do like after a big week of training, and then Sunday was a double run day. So it was like 15k on Sunday morning, and then 15k on Sunday Arvo at about 3 o'clock in the Arvo. So when no one else is doing nothing on a Sunday Arvo, you're meant to be relaxing. That was like always my staple workout. I guess it was always a big run on a Sunday Arvo out in the heat, and yeah, like it was just one of those things you don't really feel like doing it, and yeah, you build up a lot of, I guess that mental toughness. But then again, like I said, one of my biggest challenges, I think that did help me a lot was the 75 hard was one of those biggest mental challenges for me. Where at the start of it, I didn't think I was going to do it, and then I look at how I did complete that, and then yeah, then what has happened from there, the confidence that I've then grown in myself. So I think it's all about that little bits of confidence that I do get in myself about going and talking to strangers and whatever it is. I think all those bits and pieces that you put brick by brick by brick, and then you end up building that mental toughness in yourself and that confidence.
That's awesome. And what made you choose cystic fibrosis? Like, why does that hold such a special place in your heart?
Yeah, so I've got a big base of friends now with cystic fibrosis after doing the challenge for cystic fibrosis. But before that, I had a really good mate in Wollongong who lives with cystic fibrosis, Bradley Drybra. He does a great job at.
Yeah, I've had him on the show,
He's
Brad.
he's
He's a
awesome.
weapon.
Like, and his story is so good. So, it's not good, but the way he shares his story is awesome. And yeah, so
Mm.
me and him, I actually met him in one of the first road comps I ever went to, and me and him just got chatting, and we went for brekkie after it, and he put out all his tablets, and I was like, oh, like I was like, I don't want to be nosy, I don't want to ask questions. And then yeah, I found out Brad's podcast, and I started listening to a couple of his things, and I was like, oh, he's got cystic fibrosis, and I was like, oh, like just my instant thought was like, oh, it can't be that bad. Then if he was out running 10k with me, it can't be that bad. But then I actually started looking into what cystic fibrosis actually meant, and yeah, it's really a silent disease. So a lot of their work with cystic fibrosis is done of a morning and an afternoon. Like they've got to always do physio to clear out their lungs, and um, yeah, like there's many of different. The thing with cystic fibrosis is it's a whole that no two people with cystic fibrosis have the same condition. So everyone's different. Like Brad himself, he has CF, then he also has liver disease, and he's got something else. I can't remember exactly what it was. So he's got three conditions that he's got to deal with that have led from CF, and then yeah, there's different grades of CF as well. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's really a silent disease that no one talks about because they don't feel entitled to talk about. And yeah, it was one of those things that once I met Brad, and me and Brad got along great. And then I've also got a mate up here, Rory Morgan, who was the first person with cystic fibrosis to complete an Ultraman, which is a 10K swim, 450K on the bike, and then an 84K run. So that's over 3 days. So he was the first person with cystic fibrosis to complete that.
Wow.
Yeah, which is amazing.
What an effort.
Yeah, so just having those people around me, I was like, I feel like cystic fibrosis has to get more light shown on it. And yeah, that was a big challenge for me. Over my challenge, I was trying to share as many stories as possible of people living with cystic fibrosis.
Yeah, that's an awesome thing. I think you raised what, 42
40,
plus $1,000, which is
45,000 we ended up at, which is great.
yeah, well done, man.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
And it's good when, I think it's always awesome when people like yourself do those things to raise awareness for areas that aren't getting as much notice, because obviously we're all impacted by, there's so many things going on in people's lives. So to shine light on things that maybe don't get as much recognition or have as much understanding is a good one to do.
yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask as well, because I know a lot of our audience are busy men in their corporate careers and trying to climb the corporate ladder, and they don't make time for things that are important. There's always excuses there around time. You were doing 6 hours plus of exercise a day, plus then recovery on top of that.
Yep.
How did you manage to make your relationship work as well?
Yeah. So that was, I guess, me and my girlfriend, we actually have a very good open relationship where we will talk about anything and everything. And this was one thing that we'd actually spoken about before the challenge. So I guess it's all about setting boundaries and what to expect during it. So we knew that I wasn't going to be my normal self after completing 6.5 to 7 hours of training. Not of training, of the half Ironmans every day. And I guess it's just being moody and whatever it was. So for me, we'd already had this discussion that if there does come to a stage where I don't need a girlfriend and I need more of a partner, or like a partner in crime, I guess, for those however many days, then that's what it was going to have to come to. Which it didn't end up having to come to that stage, but there was a lot of time where our communication wasn't as good as it normally is. Like now we've got great communication, we can talk about anything, and that's one of our best things. Like one of my best traits that I think about my girlfriend is like she's so open about everything. Like the first time that we met, we were talking about stuff that I've never spoken to anyone about. So yeah, I think it's all about setting realistic boundaries and then also being super open. Like having nothing on putting all your cards out on the table and saying, this is who I am. This is the worst bits of me. This is hopefully the best bits of me. But yeah, like it's all about being super honest and just setting expectations, because if you don't set those expectations, then you're setting yourself up for failure, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Some great points there. And I love the communication piece, because quite often people neglect that. They just hope that their partner understands, or they assume they should get it. And it's like, no. That's why we have such high divorce rates, or even couples that are still together, but they just fucking resent each other. So
And
I
that's
was
the thing as
curious as
well.
how you did all of that.
It's all about having that tough conversation at times as well. Like with my girlfriend, she's a high level swimmer. And
Yeah.
this is just going on the other day. And I could tell she was coming back in the door every day, I guess, sort of not happy about her training and that. And for me, I knew this is a tough topic for me to talk to her about, because she's been swimming her whole life. So it's like I got no idea about swimming. I suck at swimming, but it was more about me trying to be there for her to talk to. So it was me. I was like, as much as this is going to feel weird for her, I'm like, is everything going okay with swimming and X, Y, Z? And it was a tough conversation for her to then have, but it allowed her to then trust on me a lot more. So and it's always tough conversations that we do have that I think sometimes you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, and it's not going to be anywhere near as hard as if you let that go down the track 3 years down the track, and then it's like all these communication breakdowns. You're just better off ripping the Band-Aid off and having those tough conversations.
Yeah, definitely. So what's next for you?
Well, yeah, 2 weeks' time I'm doing a 60K run. So I'll get that out of the way. And then, yeah, I think at the moment, I've just been in this really happy place of sort of just training for an hour every day with my friends, being really social. But yeah, there is a. I think next year it'll be more about trying to sort of train for maybe like an event that might be over the space of 2 or 3 days, I think, or maybe a big event, maybe a big run. I think could be in the cards as well. Maybe something um, around 100 miler plus, so maybe 200k, I
Yep.
think, or if not a bit more. Just really see how far I can push the body. Um, but
Yep.
yeah, I think for me next year, a big focus is just I just want to try and see how far I can push the body in one big go. So it's like whatever I decide that thing is, I'm just going to see how far my body can actually get pushed in the space of 1, 2 or 3 days, and just really see. Yeah, because like I said, like over 36 days, but I was having times of recovery. But I just want to see once I can really set my mind on something, how far, where is the actual limit? Where is the end that you get to a stage where you just got nothing left in the tank? And because I really think even over my challenge, there was some days that, like I said, I found were hard, but there wasn't any days where I was going to quit. So I want to get to the stage where it's like you're telling yourself to quit, and you've already told yourself to quit another 10 times before that. And I want to see where that mark lies, where it's like, all right, that's your limit. And yeah, then hopefully it's a long way away, but yeah, it could also be a lot sooner than you think, and you go, holy shit, you've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about that, and I love that because I'm very similar, is even if you do fail and you do quit, you know what you need to do better next time. It could be the nutrition. When I was doing the marathons as well, rowing, I rowed a few before I started the challenge, and there was things like gripping, like wearing gloves. I was
Yeah.
like, I'll never wear gloves. It's
Yeah.
land. But I was like, if I don't do that, I'm going to be bleeding everywhere. Then it was like how to position your hips so your ass doesn't hurt, and then like getting chafe under the armpits, like all these things that I wouldn't have known had I not started it and failed at a few of them, and then being like, okay, this is how I'm going to improve it next time.
100%.
I think the possibilities that come from failure are huge.
Yeah. And there's someone who talks
But
about,
Lane,
I can't remember who it was,
you go.
but yeah, they talk about doing one tough challenge every year so that the rest of the year looks easy. I can't remember who was, I think it might be Jesse Itzler. Is that how you say his name?
He's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's I
So
love
he
him.
he talks about doing that one tough thing every year that like makes the rest of your year look easy. So I think that's a great
Yeah,
thing to look at, and that's the thing, you look at back to that time and you go, holy shit, like I was able to actually do that, and then yeah, you surprise yourself and you can
mm.
use that in other areas of your life.
And where can people find you on social media
So on Instagram,
or in
on
general?
Instagram, I'm under Lano, Layneo underscore insano, INSANEO. So yeah, that's where I put up all most of my stuff on Instagram, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Cool. I'll have that linked in the show notes, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. Once again, congratulations on not only setting the world record, but raising the funds for a good cause as well.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me.